Hey y'all, I'm Rachel with Restorations by Rachel, and this week I will be working on this Art Deco style cabinet for a client. As you can see from the close-up footage here, there's a lot of wear and tear from over the years. This belonged to her mother, and so she is wanting to just give it some new life, make it fit into the home that they're remodeling, and I'm excited to do this for her. First up is a good cleaning. I'm using Simple Green, which is a great degreaser. This part is super dirty. You can see a little bit that I've already rubbed on there. It's coming off. But this is the kind of stuff you gotta get off so your paint will adhere. To make a lot of steps easier, I'm going to remove the doors from the cabinet. I would usually use my drill to do this, but my drill bits are a little too fat to get in these screws. So now I have this piece off, and I have labeled it UL for upper left, and that way I know that when I'm putting this back together at the end that this piece will go right there, and I also kept the screws where they originally were. Now I'm going to remove the fretwork. She wants this painted black as well, but in order to do that, it needs to come out. You will see like there are some little tack nails here and along in different places, so I'll have to gently get these out. I'm also wanting to just even record, like even if you weren't doing content, I think it's helpful to take a video just to see how it was all constructed. Like this is under this piece of wood, these overlap here, but then even here those don't quite touch. But just all little things that I'm trying to pay attention to, so I put it back the way it was. Thankfully, it was quite simple to move these brace pieces that were in there. I just used a thin metal scraper I had and gently hammered it down between the two surfaces, and that was, gave me a chance to gently pry it out, and then I just did that all the way around. It was pretty easy, just had to be careful as I did it. While I will have to take this off when I paint, currently I'm going to at least label these. So left top, left bottom, I guess I'll be looking from the inside, so left, and then I'll just go ahead and write the left, right. And I'm imagining I will just lay these out a certain way when I paint them. I'm anticipating hand painting these versus spraying them. But for now, this is a good placeholder. I'm also taking the time to cover the back, which will protect it from overspray. This just gives it a nice, cleaner look for when they pick it up. It's one of those little details that I think can really matter. Okay, now I can finally start doing some sanding. Here on these rounded corners, I'm using this foam attachment for my orbital sander. It's really nice for just being a bit gentler as I sand on those corners. I'm also slowing down my orbital sander. I really like that it is an adjustable speed sander, just because these orbital sanders can be pretty aggressive, and it's good to dial it back a little bit if you're trying to make sure you keep the integrity of the shape. And also the amount I'm sanding, like typically if you are painting over a piece, you really just do a scuff sand. This is more than a scuff sand. And that's because the finish on this is pretty worn and coming off easily. So I'm having to sand a bit more. There's also it's not very smooth. So I'm having to sand back any dents, scrapes, all that jazz. For the flat surfaces, I started out with 180 grit, but I quickly realized that just wasn't cutting it because there were so many scratches that I needed to try to smooth out, so I quickly went to the 120 to take off more of the finish. This is sped up quite a bit, but you can see how easily it's getting rid of those deep scratches that were there. This corner here is rather beat up, so I'm going to build this up to be a right angle again. It's going to have to be in 2 steps, and I'll show you how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to take some tape and put it on here. To fill the areas, I'm using in a 2-part epoxy filler. You just mix it, the darker blue is the hardener. This stuff is pretty toxic, so you do want to wear proper PPE, and then I'm just using my spreader to fill it into the cracks, and it's hard. Within about 15 minutes you can sand it. In the meanwhile, I'm sanding the shelves and finishing all the rest of my sanding I need to do. You didn't see these shelves earlier, but there are shelves that go in the body of the cabinet. After the Bondo is dried, it's time to peel back the tape and then sand it. I'm using 180 grit, and I like to go come from above it and then go down onto it with my sander. That way, the orbital sander, it spins at such a high rate. I don't want, if I come in from the side, I feel like it can chip off the filler that I put in there and make more work for me. But I do that one side, and then I'll come in again on the other side and try to come in straight onto it, and then also keep the orbital sander as flat on the surface as possible, so I'm recreating that 90-degree angle that's along the edge. With this close-up, you can see that it's not quite perfect, and it's really normal for it to take at least a couple tries to get this smooth, so I just rinse and repeat until I get it smooth. For the grooves on the base, I first started out with a squishy foam pad on my Surf Prep sander, but again, this is really beat up in this area and I'm trying to get it smooth and it just wasn't cutting it. So I tried a couple different ways until I finally found a way with using one of their kind of squishy yet still firm attachments that you can switch out the sandpaper that you use, and I used 150 grit and that was perfect. And then finally, for the fretwork, I just hand sanded that with 180 grit since it's so fragile. So I have the biggest part of the prep work done. It is all sanded. I'm sure once I prime that there'll be some areas that I need to fill, but for now, this is done. So my solution for painting these door fronts is you can see these strings back behind me. I hung them for a previous project, but I am going to use these little fisheye screws and drill into the bottom, the part that you're not going to see, that's important, so I don't have to fill it later. I'm going to pre-drill some holes into these so then I can screw that in here and then hang it from here so I can spray it and get both sides all at the same time. It'll make it a lot easier. The last step before priming is to wipe everything down. Even after I vacuum off the surface of my pieces, there's still some dust that lingers, so I like to give it one last good wipe down before I get going. I've got my primer loaded. I'm using a gray primer because I'm going to use a dark paint color. I always like to do these test sprays and adjust the volume as necessary. I'm using my Erlex 5700 sprayer. You can see I have the little nozzle there pointing up and down. This provides a good spray pattern for spraying vertically, and then when I want to switch to spraying horizontally, I just twist it for that piece to be left to right. I'd say the only downside for trying to spray something while hanging is that because of the air pressure coming out of the sprayer, the piece wants to move around, so I have to hold it, but then also try to not spray my hand with paint, and then also try to not touch the areas that I've already painted. So that part's a little tricky, but you kind of learn a method and figure it out. And now here I am twisting the nozzle for the horizontal spray pattern. That's one of the things I really like about this sprayer, because my previous sprayers, the Wagner Flexio sprayers, you have to turn off the gun in order to switch the direction of the nozzle, which is, you know, kind of annoying. Not a big deal, first world problem, but this is much nicer just to be able to do it quickly. This little upper nook ended up being a little tricky on trying to spray everywhere. You'll see me like switch the nozzle direction and switch where I'm spraying, how I'm spraying. I'm just trying to be a little creative to get everywhere with a good coverage. Also, I want to mention the type of primer I'm using. I'm using Sherwin-Williams Gallery Series primer. It has a lot of great qualities. It provides really great coverage. I do not have to thin it at all. I know a lot of primers are thick. This one has not been one that I've had to thin. They did add a color additive to it to make it gray, so I do find that it's a little bit thinner than just the pure white that I've also used, but I don't know, it's just really nice that it goes on the way it does, filters the way it does. It also dries quickly, and I have a pro account, which I think I get it for about $75 a gallon, which is pretty comparable to other good primers. This is the next morning, and I was just giving it a good look over, and it all looks really good. There are a few little minor areas that I need to fill that I spotted, but it's very few, so I'm surprised. I might find more if the sun comes out. It's really kind of cloudy and gloomy here today, but I do have an extra light on. So I'm gonna get that done and get another coat of primer on. And one thing you always want to check too is that you have proper adhesion. See, I'm gonna sand that back, but you do not want the primer to be coming off anywhere when you scratch it. I'm using Bondo spot and glazing putty for these shallow nicks that I need to fill. I love that this product dries really quickly and is easy to use. This is another toxic product, so again, wear your PPE. I'm wearing my respirator. You just can't see it in the shot. For doing these light all over sandings, I love to use these squishy foam pads for my Surf Prep sander. It's gonna sand all over but not take off a lot of product, so it's gonna just help smooth it out and be a lot faster with being an electric sander. So this is why you do a scratch test. I found this entire area that needed to be sanded back because the primer wasn't adhering. I'm not sure why, it just happens sometimes, but now I've sanded it and should hopefully stick well the next round. After a second coat of primer, it was time to paint. I'm using the color Tricorn Black. That's what the client wanted in the Gallery Series paint. Again, I love this paint, y'all. It goes on so smooth. It also dries quickly. It can be sanded as early as 45 minutes after going on. It is really durable. It self-cures, so you don't need a top coat. So that saves you time and money. The couple kind of downsides to it is more costly. For a gallon of it, with the pro discount for me, it's like $125. So it's quite a bit of money, but I think for all of its advantages that it's worth it. The other limitation is that it is a spray application only, so this is not something that you would want to hand paint with. I ended up needing only 2 coats to get full coverage with a light sanding with a high grit in between coats. For the little framing pieces inside the cabinet doors that would go behind the glass, I just stuck them into this piece of cardboard, like the nails are sticking down in there, and that underside that's not getting painted, I'm just gonna have to hand paint, but I felt like this was the best solution. You can see along the edges, especially, the glass is pretty dirty. I'm just gonna give it a good cleaning and it'll be good to go. Put the doors back together. I sprayed it really well with a vinegar and water solution and then took my razor blade to go along the edge and scrape. Razor blades are really great for cleaning mirrors, like if you're even trying to get paint off, anything like that, because it'll get the surface nice and clean without scratching it, as long as you keep the blade flat. Now it's time to reassemble the doors. It was thankfully pretty simple. I just had to make sure I had the fretwork in the right direction, and then the pieces were actually pretty easy to put on too, just because I still had the nail holes there, so that was like an added insurance if I messed anything up. And so I just lined those up and could push them in, and then for the tack nails that wanted to still stick out, I just gently tapped those back in. And now it's time to reattach the doors. This part can often be a little tricky, getting everything to line up, and I do end up having a slight issue, but we'll get to that later. You can see I had my pieces labeled with my tape, so that's really helpful that I know they're going back in the right spot. I found it easiest to first put the hardware onto the door and then attach the door to the cabinet. Now this left door gave me some issue. It did not quite go on straight. So in the end, you'll see that the knobs don't quite line up. I spent a couple hours trying to fix this. I put a shim in the hardware. I tried to rearrange the hinges, like all that I could think of, even trying to maybe bend the hinge a little bit. My husband even tried to help some because he knew I was getting frustrated. Nothing worked. So just sometimes that happens with taking doors off and putting them back on, and furniture pieces are just going to be finicky sometimes. One last little thing I noticed after attaching the door was that this edge did not have enough paint on there, so I taped it up. You'll notice I have regular painter's tape on the top, and then I use sensitive frog tape on the bottom. This is for freshly painted surfaces. It's not going to peel back the paint. Would highly recommend getting if you haven't. I just started using it recently, and it's been great. Looks pretty good. Perfect now. All right, let's take a look back at where we started. This thing had great bones, a really cute, fun style, family heirloom that just needed to be fixed up. There were lots of scratches and dings over the years, but after giving it a good makeover, here it is now. What do you think? Most importantly, the client loved it. She and her husband both came for pickup, and they both remarked at how it looked like it was brand new, and they just really loved it. So that was the most important part, and always makes me grateful when a customer is happy. It's such a cute little cabinet, and I love that it's something that was her mom's and she's getting to keep and use again now in her home. And remember how beat up it was inside? Now you don't see that at all. It really is so satisfying to see the before now compared to the after. I really hope that you enjoyed this furniture makeover, and if you've not already subscribed, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and follow along for my future makeovers, and I'll catch you guys next time.